Hello, welcome to Robbins Works. I'm Michelle Delaney, your membership enthusiast with the Robbins Regional Chamber, and I'm excited to share Robbins Works with our members as well as future members joining us. Robbins Works is just one of the many resources your chamber is using to get timely, relevant, and practical business resources for you. It's about business leaders sharing real-world solutions to common challenges. Our guests today are Lafayette, Huston, and Louis DeVicaris, financial advisors with Grigor Wealth Management. Whether you're a baby boomer about to retire, a Gen Xer stacking those dollars, or a millennial just beginning to save, we've got some great information for you. Today's How to Manage Your Finances During the COVID-19 Pandemic focuses on what you need to know and to consider during these very unique times. Louis and Lafayette, thanks so much for joining us today.
Thanks for having me.
Absolutely. Let's just start with the basics. And Lafayette, I'm gonna go to you first. What services does Grigor's Wealth Management provide?
So we provide financial planning through investment management, which is personalized for each client. So that allows us to do portfolio management, estate planning, college planning, and retirement planning. We've worked with numerous employees of the major employees in the area, like Robins Air Force Base, Frito-Lay, Purdue, just to name a few. So just by doing so, we end up becoming friends with a lot of our clients by being transparent with everything. So it's always good to catch up and learn what's going on new with our clients.
Absolutely. Well, Louis, I'm going to move to you for the next one. In the midst of the pandemic, Congress passed the CARES Act to provide a small bit of relief to employees and business owners. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Sure. So one of the big things the CARE Act did is, I'm sure most of you got a stimulus check about a month or two ago. So that was all part of the CARES Act. Most of you got $1,200 plus, if you had a child, $500, and that amount kind of went down once you hit 75,000 and went up to 99,000. So if you made more than 99,000 as a single person, you didn't get anything. The other thing that the CARES Act did is most people, when they turn 72, have to take minimum distributions from their IRAs or 401ks. That requirement is waived for 2020, and you do not need to make that up next year if you decide not to take a distribution this year. The other big thing that was part of the CARES Act was the Payroll Protection Program for small business owners. Business owners could get a loan from the SBA, and as long as it's used to cover mostly payroll and some utilities, that loan will be forgiven. So those were a couple of the big things for the CARES Act.
Okay. Well, there was a lot in the CARES Act, and given today's uncertainty, Lafayette, I'm going to move over to you. Is it wise to take a distribution this year to pay off debt from the CARES Act? I mean, that to take advantage of that whole little benefit there. What do you think?
I think that would be a last resort option. You have to meet certain criteria for it to qualify as a distribution under the CARES Act. So you would have to be diagnosed yourself, somebody in your family, or if you're directly affected by COVID-19, whether you're put in quarantine because of it and it's affecting your childcare. So if you're not if you're not meeting one of those criteria, then I wouldn't recommend you taking a distribution from your account.
All right, good to know. Good to know. Now, Louis, I'm going to move to you. I noticed in the news that there was a new regulation that went into effect at the end of June, I believe. Can you tell me a bit about that?
Sure. So it's called Regulation BI, and it just went into effect June 30th. So what Regulation BI does is basically it establishes a best interest standard of conduct for brokers and broker dealers. So when they make a recommendation to a customer on a securities or investment strategy, they're held to a higher standard. Before, it was just whatever recommendation they made just had to be suitable for the customer, but now it has to be in the best interest of the customer, which means basically I need to put any type of commissions or my financial interest ahead of the customers. And there's basically four parts of Regulation BI. So the first part is the financial advisor has a duty of care to the customer, which basically states you have to act in the best interest of your customer when making a recommendation in a brokerage account. The second part of that is your broker dealer should be giving you updated disclosures, and one of those disclosures is called a customer relationship summary. And every new and existing brokerage client, customer or advisory client should have gotten that and should get that whenever an advisor makes a recommendation. The third part of Regulation BI is broker dealers are required to identify, mitigate, eliminate, and or disclose any conflicts of interest that they have with the customer. So they really need to disclose those more than they did before. And the last part is basically firms have to establish and enforce written policies and procedures to achieve compliance with the new regulation.
Wonderful. So after listening to all that, Louis, that means you guys are fiduciaries, right? For our audience, can you let people know what fiduciaries are? Lafayette, I'll go to you.
Yeah, so we are fiduciaries. Like Lou stated before, we work in the best interest of our clients. That's something that if you never work with an advisor, that's the number one question I would say that you should ask if they are a fiduciary, and if they actually follow the standard. So non-fiduciaries only typically, like Lou stated before, recommend products that are only suitable for you. So even if there aren't the most ideal or the lowest cost or most cost efficient product for you, they'll still recommend it because they're looking out for, a lot of times they're looking out for their own pockets and their own best interest over yours. So
okay,
we try to hold ourselves to a higher standard.
Absolutely. And everyone, you guys over at Grigor's Wealth Management, you are fiduciaries, correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Wonderful. Louis, I'm going to go to you next. There were some changes regarding the 401k distributions, among other things, in the beginning of the year. Could you share some insight on that?
Sure. So in 2019, Congress passed the Secure Act, and that went into effect beginning of this year. So a couple changes for IRAs that were in that thing. Before this year, starting 70 and a half, you actually had to start taking required minimum distributions out of your traditional IRA. That age has actually been up to 72. So if you turn 72 in 2020, you would have to start taking your distribution instead of being 70 and a half. The next thing that was changed is when you inherited an IRA, you could usually stretch those distributions over your life, but now you're required to take them within 10 years of you inheriting that IRA. The next thing that was passed is basically part-time employees who've been at their job a long time. Normally, they were not allowed to contribute to their employer's 401k. They will now be allowed to do that as long as they meet certain criteria.
That's fantastic. That's great to know. I didn't know that was one of the changes. That's fantastic news. Now tell me, Lafayette, what's the difference between a brokerage and an advisory relationship?
The difference between a brokerage and advisory relationship is quite simple, actually. So with an advisory relationship, you receive ongoing advice on a either semi-annual, quarterly, or even a monthly basis if you prefer to do so. But versus a brokerage where you receive occasional advice, but that can be as occasional as you like as well. But one of the main things you would like to think about when deciding which one is best for you is, number one, cost and the size of the investment that you'll be looking into. So that kind of determines which account would be better for you. But if you like more information, I would definitely recommend you reach out to one of us to see which option would be better for you.
All right. Well, Louis and Lafayette, first of all, I am so thankful that you were here today. I do think there's some really great information here. I know we talked a lot about distributions and for those who are about to retire or are retired. But I do have a question just for some of those younger generations that might be interested in dipping their toe in the water. Mm-hmm. When is the best time to start saving for retirement?
Well, best time to start saving is basically as early as possible because the earlier you start, the less you'll have to save the older you get because of compound interest. So, just take a look at, Apple. Apple used to be, $30 stock. Now I think it's up to $400. So,
Yeah.
the sooner you start, the more growth you'll get.
Okay, wonderful. And tell me, is there anything else for somebody who is just starting out, what they need to know or things that they need to be aware of? I guess the fiduciary thing is very interesting. Is there anything else whenever they're looking for a financial manager to talk to that they should be looking for?
Well,
Lafayette? Go ahead, Lewis.
yeah, just make sure the person you're getting you sit down with, is just giving you good advice, and just make sure they're acting in your best interest.
Okay. All right. Wonderful. Well, I want to thank you both for being here today. Thank you to our speakers, Lafayette and Lewis with Gregor's Wealth Management. Thank you all for joining us for this installment of Robin's Works. The replay of today's presentation can be found through the same link for you to view later or to share with a colleague. I hope you tell your friends, and we'll see you again next time. Thanks so much, guys. See you soon.
Thanks for having us. Take care.